a lovely, fresh, juicy onion. And in this video, we shall be showing you how to grow your onions from seed to table. Hello and welcome to the New Dig Norfolk Gardener channel, where we grow our vegetables in the county of Norfolk, midway between the fine city of Norwich and the coastal town of Great Yarmouth. We garden in Zone 9A. Onions can be grown from seed or sets, but in this video we're looking at growing our onions from seed. Onion seeds are sown anywhere between late December and late March, with the most favoured time being the month of February. It's mid-January. I've filled a module tray with fresh compost and made divots half an inch deep. We multi-sow our onions, so I'm aiming for 6 seeds per cell. But if you're looking to grow your onions singularly, then sow 2 seeds per cell and thin to the strongest seedling. After your seeds are sown, stand them in a tray of water for an hour or so that the compost gets nice and moist to help aid with the germination. Now, myself and Mrs. W, we've found over the years that a mid-January sowing for us works best. We get a harvest of our onions in July, and that then frees up that piece of ground where we can then plant something else to get a second crop from the same space. Some people prefer to fill a seed tray with compost and then broadcast the seed. Once it's germinated, you'll then need to prick them out and pot them on. And that's really the reason why I no longer do that. We used to many years ago, but now we sow ours directly into cells. How I see it is that if you sow them in a seed tray, you've got an extra job to do because you do need to prick them out. You also need to use more compost to fill the pots to put those seedlings into. And the other thing that I've found over the years is that onions don't do so well when their roots are disturbed in any way. So by the very act of teasing them out of those trays and then putting them into a new pot, inevitably you are going to have some root disturbance. That root disturbance very often leads to the onions bolting. By mid-March, your young plants will be ready to transplant to their final growing positions. Space them 12 inches by 12 inches or 30 centimetres by 30 centimetres. If you're growing as single onions, then space your onions 4 to 6 inches or 10 to 15 centimetres, depending on the size onion you want. Water the plants to settle the soil around the roots. Hoe regularly to remove weeds between the rows, but I would advise to hand weed in the rows. If you catch one of your plants, it will kill them or it will cause them to bolt. Onions really don't do very well if they have competition from weeds for water and nutrients. As the growing season goes on, water well if more than 7 days pass without rain. During the month of May, thin your multi-sown onions down to 4 plants. By July, your onions will be coming ready for harvest. When you can see the neck starting to bend, stop watering them. Your onions are triggered into bulbing by the day length. So once we pass the summer solstice, they really start to bulb up.
So having grown these magnificent onions, what can we do with them? Well, they are such a versatile vegetable. Really, they're added into so many different things for flavouring, as a vegetable, as an accompaniment to various things. I'm going to show you just a quick, straightforward recipe for some onion bhajias.
Oh, they're one of my favourite snacks, Mrs. W.
Yes, I know they're one of your favourites, Mr. W, so I thought I would do this for you. So for this you need 150 grams of chickpea flour or basan, a teaspoon each of turmeric, paprika, ground coriander, cumin and fennel seeds, and also a half a teaspoon of salt. And they are my self-saved fennel seeds. So just give that a good stir around, mix it all in nicely, and to this you add 150 ml of cold water. You just keep stirring to make a nice smooth batter. And then to the batter I'm going to add 2 finely sliced onions, smells lovely, doesn't it?
Yes.
Just mix it all around so all the onions are coated in the batter. So I've been heating some oil on the hob. I've put it in a saucepan and there's about a couple of inches of oil in the bottom. And I find it quite handy to use this ice cream scoop, but however you want to do it, I just simply gather a little ball, press it together and pop it in. And I usually put in about 3 at a time. These are really quick to cook. They need about 3 to 4 minutes turning halfway in between. As you can see, they're a nice golden brown now on both sides. Just turn that one over. So all I'm going to do now is just scoop them out. I'm just going to pop those onto the kitchen paper to drain. And I'll cook the rest of the mixture off. So there we are. That quantity has made 12 onion bhajias. As I say, ice cream scoop size. Now these are lovely served with a lovely cucumber raita, mango chutney, any chutney really, salsa, or indeed just simply as they are on their own. They're really lovely. And so I've just got a little bit of chopped coriander, just sprinkle that over. I'll have a little look here at there they are.
Oh, lovely. So 12 you said there is,
yeah? Yeah, that made 12.
So that's 8 for me and 4 for you.
Now we don't often have any left over when I do make these, but if I do, I pop them into the freezer and then get them out and pop them into the air fryer just to heat them through again, refresh them, crisp them back up again. Really nice little snack to have in the freezer as a standby.
Thank you, Mrs. W. As you know, I do like an onion bhaji. Now, once you've harvested your onions, you'll need to cure them. And this is so that they will store really well. And it's not unusual for onions to store for 6 months or more. Myself and Mrs. W, we can still be eating onions in May from the previous year's harvest. Now, to cure your onions, it's a process of drying them. If your climate is very warm, or if here in the UK we have a nice warm summer with very little rain, you can simply leave them where you harvested them. Just leave them on the soil and let the sun's rays and the winds dry them out. However, we do live in the UK and it rains most weeks. We don't tend to go very many days where it doesn't rain. And you don't really want to interrupt the drying process by getting them all wet again. So what I find is the best thing is to put them into a crate and then I put them on a shelf on top of our compost heaps, where they'll receive sunshine, light, air, and they will slowly cure and dry off in preparation for storing. Now, I have seen advice out there about taking them into your polytunnel and your greenhouse to let them cure. But a word of advice. Myself and Mrs. W did that a few years back. It was one particular year when we had a heat wave and it was extremely hot from about the end of May until the end of September. We saw record bursting temperatures. And I put my onions in the greenhouse. It was before we had the polytunnel. We went in there one day, didn't we, Mrs. W, and the onions were beginning to cook.
Yes.
Oh, it had got that hot.
Yeah, we lost quite a few to that, didn't we?
Oh, yes. So I wouldn't do that if I were you. Even if the temperatures are cooler, I would always opt for an outside position where they're sheltered from any rain that we might get, but can still receive the sunshine and the air to help them cure. Now, onions are relatively simple to grow, and in general they are trouble-free. The only problem with onions is that any of the diseases or pests that can affect them tend to be really serious. One of the first ones you might encounter is onion fly. And the onion fly lays its eggs at the base of your young onion plants. When the eggs hatch, the maggots emerge and they eat the base of your onion and its roots, thus killing it. The only real way to prevent that is to cover your crop. We're quite fortunate here, we don't see the onion fly, so we haven't experienced that. But if we ever did see evidence of that, I would cover my onions. Probably the most serious of diseases that can affect onions is onion white rot. When you lift your onions, you'll know if you've got it. There will be white powdery marks all over the base of the onion, and it will slowly be rotting at the base. And if you continue to leave it, it will just rot all the way up. The onions are no good. You can't eat them. Most certainly can't store them. And although I compost most things, I certainly wouldn't advise you to compost any onions that you pull that are suffering from white rot. And the reason for that is that it's passed easily from plot to plot. The disease can be easily transferred via your footwear or any tools that you are using. If you discover that you do have onion white rot, don't walk on another bed without changing your footwear. It really does get transferred that quick. Bear in mind that once you have it, potentially you can't grow onions in that same plot for up to 15 years, which really throws your crop rotation out of kilter. Now, the most easiest way to avoid getting any of this disease is to raise your own seedlings. You know the compost you've used, you know where you've grown your onions before, and that there is no trace of it. So don't accept any gifts from people. Here's some onions for you, because if they've got onion white rot in their plots, it will get into your plots. Equally, if you have somebody come to visit your plot who is known to have onion white rot, then do insist that they bring a change of footwear. The last thing you want is for them to be walking about your plots, even if they're grass plots or wood chip, and that's the only place they're walking on. Because I guarantee you that those spores will drop on there, and then you will walk on them, eventually walk on your plots, and you will transfer that disease into your plots. The other thing that you might see from time to time are mould on the leaves, downy mildew. That's mostly caused by atmospheric conditions when it's humid and damp. Much in the same way that it causes blight on potatoes. Having good airflow between your plants is the best way to deal with that. Now, something that is becoming a real serious problem is allium leaf miner. It's spreading rapidly across the United Kingdom. And if you want to know how to spot the signs and what you can do about it, then watch the video that's coming up next. If you're enjoying this How to Grow series, then we should be releasing more over the coming weeks. So don't forget to hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss a single video that we make in this How to Grow series. Onions are amazing. And as I say, despite the problems that we said they can get, more often than not, you don't see any of those diseases. And you can grow yourself some really lovely onions. Have a great gardening week. We shall see you all soon.